Hi, everybody. Welcome to Wellness and Nutrition for You and Babe. We are just gonna give everybody a few minutes to settle in before we get started and make introductions. Um, but I am here with Nicole Berry and Rashi Burla of Prose and Nicole of Bondberry. But please come in, settle in. Um, and while you're waiting, feel free to chat us how far along you are if you're pregnant, and the age of your baby if you're postpartum, and also where you're located. So please feel free to let us know. And I just chatted that to everybody also. So, hey, Nikki. 11 months postpartum. NYC. Love it. Welcome, everybody. Hi, everyone.
All over. I love it.
All right. So yeah, we're going to be talking about nutrition and beauty and skincare and hair care and diet and cravings and just the journey of taking care of yourself as best you can during pregnancy and after. So we're so excited to have you with us. Thank you so much. Just give everybody a few more minutes. Also, before we get going, please feel free to use the Q&A function to ask any questions during the event. We'll leave 10 to 15 minutes at the end to answer any questions you have. So again, use the Q&A function to ask questions and use the chat function to tell us where you're from, what's going on with you, your sign, hobbies, whatever you got, put it in the chat, and we'll get going in a minute. Okay. All right. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Caroline Tell. I am the editorial director at Babe. Babe is the content lifestyle destination world of for Hatch. We meet women on the journey of pregnancy and postpartum wherever they're at. And we talk about everything from wellness and nutrition to medical issues to social issues, emotional well-being, always with the MO that we got you, you got this, it's all good, permission to just be and do however you're doing it. And it's always all good. So that's where we're coming from. Nicole, do you want to give yourself an introduction?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole Berry, and I'm the founder of Bondberry, which is a website with tons of recipes, plant-based recipes, particularly online. And then also we have a grab-and-go plant-based store in New York City called Bondberry Mart. And on social media, I like to share tips and tricks on how to thrive naturally as much as possible in an urban world. So whether that be plant-based recipes or tips and tricks on clean beauty, clean living. And yeah, and I have two kids. I have C and Jude. Jude is 6 years old and C is 3. And I first I first became familiar with Hatch when I was pregnant with Jude about 6 years ago, which is crazy. Time flies. Yeah, and I'm excited to chat with you guys and Prose and Hatch together today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Rashi, you want to tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi there, everyone. I'm Rashi. I run the creative and brand strategy team at Prose. I've been there almost 4 years now, so very close to the inception of the company. And hopefully most of you have heard of pros. If not, I'm sure you will get targeted now because now you've been on a Zoom call with me, so you'll probably get targeted. But I help sort of bring to life the creative and brand side of our natural hair care line. And like I said, I've been there about 4 years now. So I've been through the whole journey and have become very well versed in hair and natural products and how to, get the best efficacy out of natural products, because that's sort of what we're known for. It is natural, and how do we make it efficacious? How do we make it work for people? And I am, I guess, 16 months postpartum. I have a 16-month-old, so the whole pregnancy postpartum journey is fairly new for me. So excited to chat and share whatever, I don't like to call it advice, but share my experience with people.
Amazing. Well, thank you both so much. We're so thrilled to have you here. So Nicole, I'm going to ask you the first question. When women are pregnant, there's often food that we understand to be kind of no-nos. Sure, you have, the ones that your OBGYN or your medical provider might absolutely tell you to avoid. And then we also have kind of, your basic junk food or your sweets and your snacks. And sometimes we know we shouldn't necessarily eat it, but when the craving strikes, it's hard to say no. Mm-hmm. I guess, how did you approach that during your pregnancies, before you were a mom? And how has that changed since you've become a mom?
Yeah. So I love this question, and it goes right deep into the heart of it. It's actually like going for it. So we'll just kick it off and go there. But I think that it's really important, whether you are expecting currently or plan to are, postpartum or afterwards. For me, something that I didn't mention in my bio, but something that I talk about extensively online is tapping into your intuition, particularly intuitive eating, which is something that I now feel comfortable talking about my experience, because I personally had a big journey in my relationship with food from, the age of 13 through college, and that's when I began my healing journey into just healing those old wounds. And what I think is really interesting, and this is why I'm saying we're going to go right into it, is that pregnancy and expecting actually, for me particularly, opened up a lot of old wounds when it comes to that, because all of a sudden your body is no longer your own, right? You have these kind of foreign cravings, you're feeling in a certain way, and I think it was for me a beautiful assignment to revisit those old wounds and let go, really, because like a doula friend of mine said, when I was pregnant, I was dealing with these, kind of scary feelings. Like, this is your first lesson in that you are not in control. Like, your baby is now in control. You're no longer in control. And this is your lesson in letting go. So for my answer to that, when you're having these quote unquote naughty cravings, or whatever you want to call them, that are not necessarily in line with, let's say you are taking care of your body amazingly, you feel good, you know what foods make you thrive, you know what foods don't make you thrive. At this point, we have so many sources to learn that. And then you become pregnant, and all of a sudden all you crave is like bagels and cream cheese, or that's it, or whatever. For me, it was Triscuits and peanut butter. I don't know.
It was Nutella for me.
Yeah, it's great. It's a lesson to lean into those cravings, because your body intuitively knows what it wants, and it's not that it intuitively knows that Nutella or something is like nutritious. That's not the point. Is that I think, if anything, like cosmically, it's a lesson in saying, okay, let's let go of these reins that we've held so tightly on, because that it's really motherhood, I think, is and expecting, and these 9 to 10 months that we are expecting is that moment to break us down in order to build ourselves up again. So whatever, though, in order to be a mother and be there present for what's to come, which is, we were just talking prior to this call, it's like there's so many phases of what's to come, and we need to be prepared for that. And I think cravings are actually a beautiful way of showing, okay, let's get quiet and listen to those cravings. So although I, espouse plant-based recipes and tips and like that, my number one thing is listen to your intuition. So whatever you are craving, my personal approach is have it. Always listen to those cravings, because that will lessen the tightness and the discipline and the stress and judgment that we have on ourselves, and that will make us a better, I think, mother and overall person when it comes for when the baby comes.
I love that.
Well, mine was hot Cheetos.
There you go.
So I love that you were like, I leaned in. I ate
Yeah.
so many hot Cheetos my first trimester.
Good. Yeah.
Great.
Your baby will love spicy food then.
I hope so. I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's such a cool way of thinking about it. It's almost like it's a metaphor for everything to come, is how you treat those 9 or 10 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool.
I think that it's normal if, like, for people are having issues or, are, because I've heard about this a lot with my friends who are almost, it's almost a shame around it, of feeling strange around cravings. Cause, and we see these movies like, oh my God, I'm only craving like this, and like laughing about it, and it's fun. But like sometimes that can be scary, particularly if you have had issues with food in the past and your relationship with food. And those things, I don't think are talked about enough. So I think it's completely normal for there to be a fear around it, but you just baby steps, like embrace that fear and be present with that fear, because it's completely normal. And it's just, again, a lesson of like letting go. Cause I think that's really important.
I love that. Yeah, it's just so loaded for women, unfortunately, I think. And so the closer we can all get to really just, like you said, intuitive eating and just listening to your body, I think that's so great. Rashi, can you give us maybe like, a super simple way, to start ensuring that you're making more intelligent choices when it comes to health and wellness from a product perspective, so is there like one ingredient that we should make sure to avoid? Or, there's so much chatter, and, you could ask 1,000 OBGYNs and they'll all have 1,000 different answers. Like, was there kind of one North Star that you referred to, or how did you go about that during your experience pregnant?
Yeah, and it can actually be insanely overwhelming, because no matter what article you're reading on Google, something is bad for you, right? There's some study that's come out that like, oh, don't do too much of this, or if you do too much of that, natural or chemical. So I think the first thing is to, there's some ingredients that, you draw a line in the sand. Retinol, for example, that's just, it's clinically, you're not supposed to take it, postpartum or when you're pregnant. And then there's other ingredients where you kind of have to make a personal decision, to be honest. And for me, what I did, a good chunk of my beauty routine was already clean. My hair care routine is already pretty clean as well. I actually relied a bunch on like the pros R&D team. I would talk to them about what different ingredients did. But honestly, at a point, I sort of tried to let go a little bit and said, they're brands I trust. Obviously, I trust pros. For skincare, I trust Tata Harper, Marie Veronique. There's brands I trust. And I just kind of went down that path. And I was like, these are the products I'm going to use. I also tried to be a little bit more it's interesting, Nicole, you talk about intuitive eating. Like, I took an intuitive approach to wellness through Ayurveda, actually. And for anyone who doesn't know, it's an ancient sort of, how do I describe it? Like, it comes from the Indian subcontinent. It's very, very, very old. And it's almost like a holistic wellness practice. If you talk to a lot of people in India, that's just how they practice wellness. It's Ayurveda. And for me, that was very intuitive, kind of going back to how should I take care of myself in that way. And, there's so many tips and tricks I got from my mom about like teas to drink and natural products to use. And it can be super simple, like the oil I used on my belly was just a really, really plain, like coconut oil from that I got from an Indian store. And I use that on my belly and I use that on my hair. And I tried to simplify things a little bit. I think when I was pregnant, I think there's a lot marketed to us about this cream and that cream and try this and try that. But motherhood and being pregnant is kind of the most basic natural thing that our bodies can do. So I think leaning into that a little bit, especially as a North Star, takes the stress away. There's already so many things to stress about. I think simplicity in pregnancy is kind of the best thing you can do.
So it's almost like peeling away all of the kind of superfluous to just...
Totally. Like I stopped getting my hair colored. I stopped getting a facial. And like, obviously I've started doing all those things again, but there was something nice about kind of letting all of that go and just kind of being at peace with like the most basic, simple things.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the idea of going to like the raw materials, like Rashi was saying, like just getting pure coconut oil or getting pure jojoba oil, or sesame oil and things like that that you can find at Whole Foods or online or anything. And then you can, make your own things, but the scent, like I love coconut oil just like as a moisturizer, like that's what I use. And I think that is really key. If you're questioning like ingredients, just use the most basic thing. Also the one thing that for me, like a no for me, which was kind of when I was learning more about non-toxic beauty, I don't remember if this was like pre-partum or during, but I didn't personally know this about fragrance, synthetic fragrance, in this particular country, and it's so interesting, so fascinating that like years and years ago, in order for chemists to be able to like create their own unique fragrance and not have other people copy, the notes and everything, they were able to put it under just fragrance, right? And so unfortunately, that's become used now. And you can put pretty much any chemical under the kind of misnomer of fragrance. So unless it's like natural derived fragrance, like essential oils and things like that. So I always look, and now to this day, I check the bottles, and unfortunately, I don't know if there's that much, I guess laws around calling something clean or not, but I will say if you find synthetic fragrance in a brand, that doesn't necessarily mean it's clean, which is unfortunate, but.
Yeah, Nicole, I'm glad you mentioned that. We actually deal with this at Pros all the time. Like the fragrance industry is one of the least transparent industries around clean beauty. It is very, very hard to get clean fragrance. And I think to your point, I would avoid it just because you don't know where it's coming from. If it's not a natural oil, you don't know. And it's just, I think from an industry perspective, down to the supply chain, you can't really trace a lot of the products or a lot of the ingredients that go into fragrance. So it's a great point.
Yeah. And that doesn't just mean perfume. That's like body lotions, shampoos, things like that. It's like, if it's a bummer because you'll be like, okay. And then all of a sudden you see fragrance, you're like, oh.
And it's it's always the last thing.
Yeah.
At the very bottom of the list.
That's a non-negotiable for me. And what's interesting is that once I stopped using synthetic fragrance, if I come across a product that has fragrance in it, synthetic fragrance, it's like, it blows me away. Like I like have to like, it's almost like truly intoxicating because you realize how strong these things are. So my nose has become a lot more like susceptible to it. So I usually opt, which actually was awesome with Pros, is that you can opt for like no fragrance at all. And but so if it's like a naturally derived fragrance, I'll do it. But that's what I love. And now I prefer things that are scentless. So.
Yeah. I mean, Nicole, that kind of segues into my next question, which is, clean beauty, and that means something different to everyone. And it's a tough definition to nail down.
Yeah.
What does clean beauty mean to you? And Rashi, you as well, I'm curious.
Yeah. So I wish I had like on my nose list, and I know that they exist. And what's really cool is that there's so many now vendors and retailers that have it for you, being like, there are no-nos. And but what I've learned from my end to like what to look out for, I really strive for it to be cruelty free, no parabens, no phthalates. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's bad. Talc, no, I think I said fragrance, oil, like, too many synthetic oils, things like that. Just really, just like you would go to the supermarket and you're like, don't buy products that you can't really necessarily pronounce, same deal with beauty. And what's so amazing now, particularly, is there's just so many brands. And so Rashi, you were talking about efficacy and everything. It's, it's kind of like, why wouldn't you go clean? Because there's so many amazing quality products. Pros, for instance, actually the hair care was one of my last, I think it went like body wash. Like, so I shifted to Dr. Bronner's, which I think is amazing. Talk about simple ingredients. Then I went like deodorant, then skincare, beauty, makeup was one of the last shifts for me. And then hair care. And I will say that Pros I just recently discovered this year, and I am truly obsessed with it. I think it's amazing that you can curate it. And so you don't really need to sacrifice quality for clean options. It's just, I feel like every month the industry, clean beauty industry is getting better and better. That said, do be careful about greenwashing and clean washing where, it's like a tag buzzword. So just be your own investigator and look at the ingredients, because what you might assume, like I get sent things all the time, and what I assume would be clean, I look back and I'm like, like, no, I can't use that. So it's always good to trust yourself and look at the things that work. And yeah, so I strive to be pretty clean though in my routine, because there's so many good things out there now. Why wouldn't you?
Totally. I feel like even 3 years ago, it was harder. And
Yeah.
now there's so many amazing brands. I think one thing for me is, one, it's doing a little bit of research, but who has that much time, especially this crowd? We really have that much time to do that much research. I think you can really tell away a brand, and I'm going to say it from like kind of a brand perspective, because that's how I view most products. It's how the brand talks about themselves. Like if you've got a site that's like, oh, we're clean, and there's not a lot of detail around there, it's like, it's hard to trust that, because that's greenwashing. But it's pretty easy, actually, if you go to a brand's about page, or you look at their science page, or you just look at who's making the products, you can pick up pretty quickly whether it's legitimate and whether
they'll post their ingredients too, 100%. Like straight up, like right there. And be careful, because there'll be like the ingredients and there'll be another tab with like other ingrents. So you have to like scroll down.
Totally. It's always the most transparent brands that you should be trusting, even if they're not always using 100% natural ingredients. I'll use Pro as an example. It's a very clean brand, but we're not always using 100% natural ingredients, but we post every single ingredient we use. Tata Harper does a really good job. There's a few other brands that do a fantastic job of being like, this is what we offer. And I think those are the brands that you have to trust. It's actually kind of crazy. Another thing you can do, it's harder to do, but the EU, I think they ban, over 100 something X chemicals or in beauty products. In the US, we ban like 30. I may be getting those numbers wrong, but it's like 5X what the EU bans versus the US. So there are resources out there that you can say, does the EU allow this product? Then it's probably safer for you than what the US. It's actually really sad. We have to do a lot of self-regulating here in the US because the government just lets all sorts of chemicals and all of that into beauty products without really any regulation.
And then again, that's like, it is a shame, but it also is good because it empowers you to be your own investigator. And that, again, going back to preparing you for motherhood, is going to be what you're going to be doing all the time too, So I when I first started going clean though, I referred to, I think, the EWG website, where they'll literally rate like an A to F letter grade of almost all brands. So that's pretty cool. Again, you will see they'll things that you thought were clean, but because they have synthetic fragrance, they take that all into account, which is really great. Another thing I did at the very beginning of my like health journey is I would just go to Whole Foods, like in the little pharmacy aisles, and just browse there. And it's like being in clean Sephora, and finding, and they have so many different great things. Like when I was much younger, like all we had was like Burt's Bees with like some really like metallic pink shimmer, and we've come a long way from there. So it's good. So I like doing that. I like just going to Whole Foods and just like walking around and like finding all the little creams and things like that.
That's great advice, actually, Nicole. Like,
it is great.
Yeah, I haven't been to a Whole Foods in a minute, but I do remember years ago, that was also kind of my first experience with clean beauty. I think I bought that brand like Yes To. I don't know if you guys know that brand. And it's like carrot scented. I don't know.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know if it still exists, but I do remember discovering it at Whole Foods. And again, going back to trust and trusting brands, like, you can walk into Whole Foods and the beauty products are going to be clean. They're going to be natural. They're going to be safe. So, trust the brand
stores. Like if you live, I see a lot of people are all over, and like if there's those like really crunchy granola health food stores, they have a pretty cool like beauty. I remember, this is now shuttered, but there was Integral Yoga on 13th Street in the West Village, and it was a really old, dusty grocery store. But they had this like one rack, and actually, I think I was pregnant because I would find like African shea butter, like these pure ingredients, and I would mix it up, or they'll have certain things in bulk. One thing I love doing is actually getting an actually fresh aloe leaf at the health food store and slicing it open, and it makes the most amazing moisturizing skin mask. And I think I did do that during, while I was pregnant, but of course, always speak to your doula and your midwife and OBGYN before you try anything, because again, to Rashi's point, certain natural things, even though it's natural, is, sometimes it's not advised, so, but going back to simplicity and kind of hunting, it's kind of fun. I mean, in this day and age of online everything and marketing, like you're saying, marketing in your like strategic targeted marketing, it's fun to like go into a health food store or somewhere and just like browse, and kind of discover things. That art of discovery is really fun.
Totally.
Do it while you can before the babies come.
Yeah.
Then you'll get everything.
Actually, Carrie Holden, thank you. She posted a list that she said is a good list for clean beauty in the chat. So if you're interested, head over there. I believe it's Made With. That's the name of the website. So check it out. Rashi, when it comes to your beauty regimen, did anything change for you when you became a mom? Did you find yourself looking for brands that only use, I mean, I think you sort of mentioned that, but in terms of, the actual routine, it's like the cleanser, the oil, did anything change for you? Did you suddenly find yourself doing like a 2-for-1, products that offered duality just to be able to save time and save a step? How did your regimen change?
Yeah, I would say it mostly changed. It's almost primarily clean now. I do use a retinol, but it works and it's hard. I missed it when I was pregnant, so I went back to retinol, but the rest of it is remained clean. Pre-pregnancy, I wasn't completely clean besides pros. I worked there, but besides that, everything wasn't fully clean. Now it's completely clean. I will say, to me, my skincare routine is sort of my me time. So by no means by no means did it like turn into a 10-step routine, but I actually really enjoy doing it. It's like the end of my day, like kind of grounds me. I kind of like going through the process. I discovered bats postpartum. I mean, I knew bats exist, but bats to me like now are the best multitasking tool ever. Like, I don't know why I never did them before, but you can hair mask, you can face mask, you can, have a drink, whatever that drink of choice is. You can catch up on content. You can have alone time. It's just the most amazing 30 minutes. So, in terms of change, I wouldn't say, I will say I'm experimenting less. Like, I don't really have time to buy products and see if it works and toss it. Like, I've got my brands I go to. That's what I buy from. That's what I trust. And I think beyond that, it's keeping it clean. And again, going back to what I kind of said before, keeping it simple. Like, I mainly use coconut oil, similar to you, Nicole. Now, I mean, I started doing it when I was pregnant. Now I mainly use that to moisturize. In the winter, I'll add a lotion because it's really, really dry. I'm in New York. I cleanse with face oil. I happen to use jojoba oil. I think different oils work for different people. My hair mask is an oil as well. So I think it's a mix of, I went cleaner, I simplified, but I also didn't get rid of the joy that like the beauty ritual brings me, because I wanted to keep that. I didn't want everything to be, I feel like we're so efficient in everything now, like we try to find efficiency in everything. And of course we have to, we don't have time anymore, but the things that bring you joy still, and the things that make you slow down a little bit, it doesn't have to be beauty. It can be cooking. It can be whatever it is, try to hold on to that, because I don't know, what fun is it when everything is like uber optimized and uber efficient?
Totally. And Nicole, being a busy mom, sometimes you have to choose between making the healthy choice and making the choice that works in that moment, especially when it comes to food for your children. What are some of the ways that you decide when it's okay to be a little bit looser versus when it's worth it to take that time to slow down and do things differently? And how do you navigate between those choices? And how do you end up making the ones you end up making?
Right. Yeah. I think that again, it's going back into intuition and seeing like what in those moments, like some days there's just like no time, you just have to order in dinner or whatever. But for me, we kind of have these non-negotiables that kind of set a foundation. So if the day goes somewhere else in another direction, we have those that kind of foundation. And for me, our family makes, like, every morning we make a family green juice. The kids started having green juice the minute that they could have solids, or I mean, not even solids, like at 6 months. So we make a green juice every morning. We have been doing that since 6 months. And so that is our non-negotiable. I make sure that they have all their nutrients and minerals through that. And then we go from there, you know, but for me, that's like, I know that they have that for the day. And whether that is a smoothie for you, for another family or whatever it is, you know, that is our non-negotiable. During the week, it's really important that they have like home cooked meals for me. We have like a rotating roster of kind of dishes that we know work and are successful with my kids who are 3 and 6. And then
What are some of them?
What
If you
are
don't
they?
mind me. Yeah.
So for breakfast, we do like a vegan French toast, which is kind of like sourdough bread. And this is where my son has a lot of allergies. So I had to get creative quickly, but he has an egg allergy. So we do blend ripe bananas and cinnamon and almond milk in a blender, but you can use rice milk or whatever if you guys are not free. And use that blending as you would French toast and just like, you know, flip it in the pan with coconut oil or butter. So that's our breakfast. We do, my kids are not fully vegan, but they are mostly plant-based. So we'll do like avocado sandwiches. We do little siete, which is the grain-free tortillas with vegan cheese on top for like pizzas or quesadillas. And we'll do like a legume or brown rice pasta a lot of days. The kids will steamed broccoli and steamed cauliflower are like the vegetable that they will eat. So it's always a rotation of that. When speaking of Ayurveda, like when they were younger, we used to make a lot of like dolls and beautiful things like that, but they turned 3 and they were just not about it. So I'm hoping that they'll come back to that. But yeah, so those are like kind of just the simple, you know, nothing crazy. Things. And then on the weekends, you know, Friday nights have now, as my kids get older, we've like dubbed Friday night movie night, and we'll do like air pop popcorn together. And that's like a moment of fun, joy. And like we have like as I said, a plant-based convenience store. So we have all the like fun snacks that are like the vegan M&Ms with like, you know, plant dyes. And so we'll like incorporate those little fun things. And otherwise, we'll order in pizza. We'll do vegan pizza on weekends. Again, this is like what we do, but whatever that means to you, like, you know, whatever the fun thing is. My son loves avocado sushi rolls, so we'll do sushi night. You know, it's just like incorporating like fun and like not making it feel like drudgery, I think, but also not having to feel like you have to make a brand new recipe every single day. Like find the 5 things that's at work, you know, and it's fine with repetition, you know, and soon then try something else and like throw in a little thing here. But I think for me in the beginning, I put a lot of stress and pressure on myself to like create a new meal for them every day, you know, and like do these elaborate meals. But as they get older, as my business has more, you know, like I have to just stick with what works and not like try to reinvent the wheel. I think that's okay.
What about like the birthday party or the play date or Halloween? I mean, how do you handle that? Because
I don't know if you
so
want to ask
often,
me how I handle that. How I handle that will be very different from others. But
yeah, no, I'm curious because
if you really want to know, I invest in a very airtight Yeti cooler, which is like the kind that like zips up and is basically like a freezer. It's amazing for those mothers who are breastfeeding, for if they're traveling. Like I traveled cross country while I was breastfeeding and I froze my milk. And by the time I got back to New York, it was still frozen. So it's like the essential investment if you're breastfeeding and you are traveling with milk. So I have that Yeti cooler from my breastfeeding days, and we'll put in vegan ice cream. Again, this is also coming from an allergy mom. Like this was more, I would probably be a little more loose if my son didn't have allergies, but we want him to partake and we want him to have fun. So we have, again, just like there's a lot of clean options in beauty, there's so many options now when it comes to food and fun things. So we'll pack our ice cream or we'll pack the cupcakes and everything and bring it with us. And he has like just something that's just as good and fun. So that's how I navigate it. With my daughter who doesn't have allergies, you know, then she partakes in the party and has what they have to offer. And I know that they have a grounding, you know, at home, and joy is huge. Just like Rashi was saying, it's like joy leads first, no matter what, with my family, with myself. It's essential when you talk about well-being and wellness, like none of it matters if there's not like joy, you know, behind it.
Yeah, we just had our first Halloween and with Rye, my son, and he's 16 months. He has no clue what's going on. He just
Yeah.
enjoyed grabbing all like the
Yeah.
wrappers. That's all. I mean, and then at the end of the night, we were like, he's never had like candy, and we're like, okay, we should give him something because
Yeah.
like this just feels like something he should have. So we broke off a Rice Krispie treat, like like the 90s, like that blue shiny packet that I had for lunch every day. And I was like, oh, I want him to try it. And he put it in his mouth and it was insane. He looked like he was in euphoria. He was just like, what is this? And
They
he was
design it that way.
100%, which is a whole nother topic. But
Yes.
Joy, like just to see that, he was just so excited and happy. And it was just, I don't know, it made us laugh. And it just,
Yeah.
it makes for like this wonderful like moment that you have where not all the time do the rules have to apply. 80-20 rule, 90-10 rule, however you want to do it. But I'd say it's just about being strategic and picking the moments where it's fine to let go. And I love what you said, Nicole. Like if you have a grounding at home and you have like a home base to come back to of what the rules normally are, breaking the rules is the fun part.
Yeah. And I think one thing I do want to say though, I think that there's been a backlash against, wanting to provide more, I guess, nutritious options or nourishing. I don't like the word nutritious, but nourishing options for your kids. And it's like, let them do this, let them do that. I think that's great, like whatever your choice is. But I do believe that, it is our job to kind of vet things. And there comes a time where they will make their own choices and they will thrive making their own choices. But until then, I feel that I'm able to like vet things and that's okay. We shouldn't be ashamed of that as long as there's joy involved. We're not, so I am all for, making the conscious choice for what's right for your family, and for Halloween, for what we do, again, allergies, they do the whole thing. They have so much fun. They collect all of their things. And then we have, luckily, mom has a like candy, basically like a vegan candy store. I'm able to swap it out, and they understand and it's a conversation. That's one thing I want to say. It's not a sneak. Like that's really important for us when they're older. It's like, okay, we can't have this because we're allergic to this, or we can't have this because, this doesn't make us feel good, and how about this option? Not doing the kind of like hiding. And I think that like that sneaky energy will, can backfire. But I think something with just being like keeping them involved, even if they feel like my kids are 3 and 6, you know what I mean? They might not fully understand it, but they feel involved and they feel part of the process, I think is important. And if they, rebel and they're like, no, I want the blow pop, then they can have the blow pop.
I also think modeling is really important. And I think that takes a lot of pressure off us because, there's a lot of food that like I wish my children ate and they just don't. And they have generally healthy habits or nourishing habits, but, I'd like to think that I have really great habits. And so, not all the time, of course, but, I feel like as long as they are being raised in a household where they're seeing me, toss a salad or, steam some veggies, they may not want that in this moment, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But, maybe eventually they will, or maybe they never will, but, they're seeing how we are. And then I'm hoping that it's kind of just that lifestyle, which then I also feel takes the pressure off me to like want them to have these items now.
Yeah,
So,
I absolutely agree with that. Totally. Yeah.
We're going through a big eating phase. And that's the one thing that like, I keep telling, my husband and I, like, let's just keep modeling for him. He's not touching anything. He's currently, we call it like a brown and white food diet. It's literally what he's been eating for the last couple of weeks, but we're just going to keep offering it to him. We're going to keep serving it to him and we're going to eat it. And, to your point, we're going to model it. And one day, hopefully it seeps in and he can't eat brown and white food forever. So
yeah. One thing also, like there's like, I do like fun things. Like you can incorporate, like if you have pasta night, you just blanch up some spinach and like, but enough so that it doesn't turn brown. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, cause my son will be like, what's this? It's like, okay, it's like, you have to get enough amount of leaves that it's still red, but still has the nutrients in it. So, it's getting creative and just like less pressure. I think it's like, I think we put so much pressure on ourselves to be like perfect. And, just even the like plant-based person who's like posting all the salads. My son went on like a full-on fruit and vegetable strike for like 3 months, like not one thing when he was like 4. And I think I almost like had a mental breakdown, you know? But then he came around and it was okay. And again, it was just like my lesson as a parent, like, you know, let go, you know, and it's a really good lesson for all of us, you know? So
that sort of leads me to my next question, which is if you are going to cut a little slack around the house with yourself, with your children, you know, whether it's actual nutrition and diet or whether it's beauty and skincare. Rashi, I know you mentioned, you know, a little retinol. Where do you kind of toe that line? What's kind of the thing that you're okay with?
You want to take it first, Nicole?
Yeah, I'm sorry,
so,
Nicole.
so like for myself or for the kids or?
Yeah, either one. You know, where do you find yourself just kind of, I don't know, kind of just cutting yourself a little slack or cutting them a little slack?
I think on weekends for me, it's like everyone works really hard during the week. My husband, myself, the kids are at school and everything. And so that's why I was saying like movie nights or just like ordering in. It's just like, I've come to like accept that like Saturday nights are like pizza night and Sunday nights are like sushi night. And like we order in and it's like a looking forward to situation. I don't have to worry about cooking or we'll eat out in the city. And I think that has been a big shift for me personally, where I felt like I had to cook every single meal for the kids like this. And that really couldn't have happened until they're older. But like, this is like kind of a nice thing for myself to like, you know, let myself off the hook and just like order in and it'll be fine.
Yeah, kind of similar, like Friday nights. Honestly, like I don't want to do any dishes. We put our son down, we open a bottle of wine and we order whatever. Like I think what did we have last Friday? Like fried chicken sandwiches. It was delicious. It was so good. I didn't feel guilty about it at all because again, like you know that you try to live this like 80-20 lifestyle where 80% of the time you're doing right and you want to do the right things and the healthy things. But I think we're going back to joy and being intuitive. You know, at the end of Friday, like I don't want to eat a salad. I just really, really don't. You know, I just want to sit and I don't want to sit at a dining table and have a proper meal. I want to sit on the couch and eat my fried chicken sandwich with my glass of wine. And then the next morning I'll wake up and work out. So
That sounds lovely.
Yeah, I think it's the mix of also feeling intuitive. Like I love what you were saying, Nicole, about that, and you know what makes you feel good and what doesn't. And I think in beauty, like I use the example of retinol, but you know if there's certain things that you know you want to do and they bring you joy and confidence and all the other things, like you know do them. Like you only live once. It's not. I also think not every decision has to be so monumental. You know, like I think you want to do it for a while, use it, and then you can stop. Like, I think not everything needs to be so black and white. There can be a lot of gray and you can change your mind and you can decide the next morning you're going to do this or you're going to do that. I don't think we don't need to be so absolute about habits.
Yeah. So now I'm going to ask some questions from the attendees who had written in. Nicole, can you speak to healthy eating in the third trimester and maybe, I mean, pregnant or not, how to, and honestly, I think sometimes I know personally, like you know, if I kind of go down that hole, I kind of keep going until I find whatever it is I'm looking for sometimes. But I guess how not to overeat, you know, I think sometimes when something's just great, we just kind of want to keep going there. And I know it probably goes back to intuitive eating, but if you can
Yeah, I
sort
think
of,
it's just focusing on like really tuning in and seeing like what is it that I'm craving right now? Because like going all, you know, like if you're so just whether that's through breath and just a moment and so you'll know like for Ashi, whatever it's like the fried chicken sandwich or for, you know, it's like I would rather wait to know exactly what I'm craving and whether it's like a Thai place in Queens that I have to trek 50 minutes to go to, you know, like I know that it will hit so much better and it will just like be so much more satiating and indulgent if it's the one thing that I want. So being willing to hold out and going that extra mile for the thing that you want will really satiate you the most. And I think like that goes for me all the time. It's like I'd rather just really tune in of what I'm wanting in that moment rather than just mindlessly kind of you know snacking or whatever it is to figure out what it is to finally get to that point. And that's not only for snacks, that's for life, like really focusing, breathing in and figuring out like what is that what do I want in this moment? Is it rest? Is it more movement? Is it just to, tune out? Like try to like live. It's not, intuitive eating is holistic. It's part of living your life holistically. Is it the job that I'm trying to find, what is it? And doing the thing that really can be closest to what you're craving. So that to me is, it's not really like what you should be eating, because it's so subjective. It's really like, what is it? What are you craving in that moment right now? So.
I love that. Yeah, totally. And really kind of putting your energy behind it and like honing in on it versus, like you said, just kind of raiding the cabinet mindlessly. And
also one thing is about like, we're preparing to give birth, right? And so let's not forget that this is like, an active, very massive physical labor, as it's called, so for me, I was actually pretty active during my pregnancy, and I was so grateful in my labor, my actual labor, for that, because I was able to like tune in my body and mind into that moment. And even though I was very indulgent during my whole pregnancy, I was not limiting at all. I did fuel my body with things that I felt were nourishing, like really hearty sourdough breads, like ghee, and things that are like grounding and like nourishing, but also very indulgent. And my, like, I believe that my body thanked me for that during those moments. Of course, we're going to have the moments where we're eating whatever, but I think always remembering that this is not a time just to check out. It's really a time to check in. So remembering that, and your body will thank you during labor and after labor as well. We are trying to nourish our body, nourish, the most that we can.
And can you give us any tips on how to get more protein, particularly in the second and third trimester as you're growing really actively, in a plant-based way?
Yeah, I think legumes are a beautiful way to get more protein. Particularly lentils are really high in iron. Soaking your lentils are really good to help with digestion, and even algae is actually strong in protein. So a lot of nori, seaweeds. Those are the things I would recommend mostly.
And what about if you're struggling with nausea? Not nausea. I don't know.
That's
just came out weird.
I was really sick my first trimester. A lot of ginger teas, chewing on ginger candy.
Rashi, how about you?
Yeah, second that, ginger. I every night I would like chop up some ginger, like just chunks, throw them in hot tea. I'd drink it, and then I just eat the ginger straight. I know like it's not tolerable for everyone, but I loved it. It made world of a difference. Hot Cheetos, again, plugging in some hot Cheetos. It's what helped me with nausea. Also cold food. I don't know if anyone, I think it's different from person to person, but really cold fruits, anything that was cold just really like kind of tended to calm my system down a lot.
And Rashi, can you speak to foods that you would eat to combat postpartum hair loss?
So that's a little bit of a tricky question. Obviously, I'm not a doctor, so I don't want to give any medical advice, and definitely speak to all your peeps before you add anything to your diet. But I found, and again, kind of going back to like principles of Ayurveda, is just a lot of warm, nourishing foods are really, really good just for skin and hair. It's all one system. So it's not necessary that there's something that's targeting, although fatty foods, omega-3s are really, really good for hair in general. I did eat a lot of egg. I ate a lot of avocado. I ate a lot of like dals, ghees, really, really warm, nourishing food. There's an Indian oil called amla. It's AMAL, amla. I think that's how you spell it. That's just known to be good for hair loss in general. So that's something I would mix some amla oil with coconut oil, and I would rub that into my scalp during pregnant, all to sort of like be prepared for this postpartum hair loss. But to be honest, I still lost hair. I lost tons of it. And it just kind of like one day, I think it was like month 3 or month 4 in the shower, it just started coming out. But, luckily my hair was strong enough from the things I was doing prior where, my hair could handle it. And around actually that time at Pros, we came out with Root Source. which is our herbal supplement. And it's great because you can take it. It's totally safe for breastfeeding. Obviously, again, speak to your doctor, but there's no hormonal blockers. There's none of that stuff that happens in a lot of other hair loss supplements. So I actually started taking that preemptively. And even though I still lost the hair, almost immediately, like I would have new hair growth, like within the next couple of weeks. So I think it worked really well. I think whatever you can do preventatively, do it, and then take some kind of supplement or something that you feel comfortable taking to get that hair loss, the hair growth. It will grow back though. It definitely will grow back. If you have a healthy, well-rounded diet and you take the right steps, it's terrifying when it happens, but it grows back.
Thank you so much. And now I'd love to take some questions from our audience, our community. If anyone wants to type anything into the Q&A, we're here for some questions. But yeah, no, I mean, thank you so much. I think this has been so enlightening. And I think so much of what you both said, you know, is totally right on for pregnancy and postpartum, but also I think just life. Life as a mom and as a woman, as we get older. I mean, I think a lot of the conversation around nutrition and diet, I mean, that doesn't necessarily go away. And if, you know, this idea of intuitive eating, if that can, and eating and living with joy, if that can guide us and all of our decision making, you know, moving forward, then, you know, I think that's only a good thing, right? We have someone who asked that, she said, I'm torn on plant-based retinols. Any thoughts on using them during pregnancy?
I think you're on mute.
Sorry. I personally, on the like usual daily, I use plant-based retinols, but I avoided them during pregnancy because my like holistic facialist was just like, you know, better safe than sorry. And also I feel like because of our skin and our hormones, like we are more, at least I was more sensitive to activating things like that anyway. So personally, I avoided them, even though they were natural retinols.
Yeah, I did the same. I'm a warrior. I was like, I don't, just better safe than sorry on that one.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We will be sending a follow-up email with some exclusive perks as well as a recording, should anyone want to rewatch the event. So, you know, we're here. And yeah, thank you so much. This was just
you guys.
so lovely. Oh, wait, hold on. I think we have, we have one or two more questions actually before I sign off. So we have someone saying, I've been doing a lot of intuitive eating. This pregnancy has been a lot harder on me than my previous ones. I unfortunately had extra weight due to COVID. Any tips to not gain much more?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, I'll answer. I think that, again, trying to tune in, to be mindful as much as possible at all moments, you know, and hopefully trying to, like, you know, separate the thought and the judgment, but just being really present in the moments that we are nourishing ourselves. And if we crave something, your body's craving something and wants it, it knows best. I think that we are always very concerned about, you know, whether it's like checking the scale when you go into your doctor's office visit, or comparing yourself to your previous pregnancies, and all of those things are, you know, chattering in our brains. But the key is if we are mindful and present at each time that we nourish ourselves as much as possible. Again, if you have more than one kid and you're feeding people and you're eating at the same time, and it's like those moments are not always possible, but as more so than not, you know, again, like, you know, it's a scale, nothing is black and white. Then we have nothing to worry about, truly, you know, and afterwards, you know, you'll have the time to heal from that pregnancy, but really like trying to let go again. And I truly believe that if as much as possible, we can be present when you are eating and nourishing yourself, your body will serve you and will do the things that it's meant to do. And if that means gaining more weight, then that means gaining more weight. You know what I mean? And I know that's hard to, it seems like a non-answer, but it really is. It's really hard to practice that in the moment. It's the biggest work that one can do. So it's not a non-answer. It's a real answer.
And do you have any skincare brands, either of you, that you recommend during pregnancy?
I loved Herba Viva for everything. I still use it. Their body oil, their belly oil. I use that as like still. I love it so much. Weleda had a really good belly oil as well. And also I used Lene Botanicals, which I still use also. It's a natural skincare brand. You mentioned Tata Harper, Rashi. I loved Tata Harper. Again, I found it a little too activating, particularly when I was pregnant. But after I was pregnant, I went right back to it because I was obsessed with it.
Yeah, it's really efficacious.
Yeah.
Is that the right word? I don't know, but it's like one of the natural brands out there where like, oh, this is working. Yeah, my skin was was not very sensitive during pregnancy, so I could tolerate it, but you can feel it. It's definitely an active brand for sure.
Yeah. I see sorry. That another question about the haze of that first 4 months. And I totally identify with that, particularly with my first pregnancy. That is what I was talking about, is that I think that there should be more conversation about this haze where we feel like outside of our own body and something else, is leading it. And that can be really difficult if we put a lot of work in being in tune with our body. And I think that coming out of it, having been there twice before, now I see that it's a process, and that is just part of the process. And the haze is almost like a deliberate haze. So just forgive yourself and let go, forgive and let go. And it's okay. And it's just a phase, just like childhood and motherhood. I realized that the big aha moment for me as a mother was that when you think, particularly with babies, I think something is going to be forever and will never change. And you're like, I'm either never going to sleep, I'm never going to do this. All of a sudden the phase ends. And so this is just a phase, and so it will pass. This too shall pass.
Yeah, I mean, totally. It's like, I don't know how many times I've said this too shall pass, for the good and the, like, not just the bad, but also the good days. You're like, yeah, oh, my baby's perfect. He's sleeping, he's eating. And then of course something just goes to something.
Yeah.
I was also going to plug Marie Veronique. I love that brand. I discovered it when I was pregnant as well. I got a facial at Cap Beauty, which now sadly has closed their location in Greenwich, but my facialist at the time, I bought the whole line of a bunch of really, really well formulated things, and I'm still using them. So definitely not the cheapest line, but definitely check them out. They're great too.
Yes. And breast products for preventing stretch marks. Again, like though I used like crazy the Herba Viva and the Weleda. Those come into like little glass bottles. I wish they came in like bulk. So what you could do is mix those with like jojoba oil and like dilute them, coconut oil. And then there is a brand that's like targeted to stretch marks and I believe is clean. It's called Mama Mio. So I didn't really use that as much, but and I think Babe or Hatch has one too.
I was gonna say, I could plug Hatch here. Our belly oil is incredible for stretch marks. It relieves itching, it relieves dryness. We have a whole assortment dedicated to stretch marks, dedicated to swelling, dedicated to nausea. I mean, really everything you're going through, migraines, hair loss, everything you're going through, there is a Hatch Mama product for it. So definitely check that out as well.
I'd say start early though. Start the oil even before you start showing. Try to start it as early as possible.
Yes, and keep moisturized, stay moisturized.
Well, ladies, thank you so much. This was wonderful. I so appreciate your time. And thanks to all of you who tuned in. We're so grateful for your support and watching us tonight. Thank you. And again, we'll be emailing the recording, so you can always rewatch. Stay tuned for more.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Have a great night.
Have a good one.
Bye, you too. See ya.
Bye.